Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a very special episode of Another Day, Another Album. I've talked about this for a while, but it is now finally time to talk about the acclaimed and famous Everywhere at the End of Time. The legendary sample-based experimental ambient album spanning an entire 6.5 hours. As I previously said, yes, I did listen to it. All at once. Please don't quote me out of context unless it's funny. I actually bought the album so I could be sure I was listening in the quality that was intended by the Caretaker, or also just so the computer would tell me which track it was, but you know, hey, supporting artists directly is always a good move. Stream transhumanist agenda in your fucking sleep. The album is readily available on YouTube, however, with the most popular upload of the entirety of the album currently standing at 31 million views. I also tortured myself to listen to this album sleep deprived, so if I lose it by the end, that's probably why. Now, before we start, I want to let y'all know this is going to be a very different type of review than what I normally do. This is much more of a first impression than a full dissertation, because I can't. I can only research so much, so I'll be just walking y'all through my experience with the project, quite literally going through my thoughts as I was listening to it, because I actually wrote the entirety of this script while I was listening to each song. Even towards the end, I basically wrote the entire series on my phone. I also normally do a discussion about the artist, their previous works, and their context, but for this video, I think it best if we go into this as many people do, blind and curious. Blind and curious, could call that blind curious. I recognize that opening melody anywhere, and that familiarity from the memes and word of mouth feeds into the sense of reminiscing that the sample and vinyl crackle definitely add on to. The second track really deserves a lot more love as a piece. It's like watching a single ballerina dance down a gigantic hallway in a European castle. The sound design is so meticulously perfect, the distortion itself almost has a rhythm. I really like the phasing in this third piece. Return of the horns with the phase distortion again on the fourth track, and honestly, it's a welcomingly strange sound. The sudden interruption into the next track is a little off-putting though. The sound of this track is slightly off, like it's a few semitones off from what it's supposed to be, and it really adds to this uneasy feel of the song. This track just sounds like pure bliss. And it's weird to hear the details and the nature sounds that are heard juxtaposed with the noise that's ever present throughout the album so far. This track is absolutely entrancing. I lost track of where I was about this point, and I'm noticing that the endings here are starting to become a little more extended. This track is just as entrancing as the seventh, a bit more repetitive, in a very uncomfortable way here. I'm surprised things are starting to take a dip this early, and I'm kinda worried about what's gonna come ahead. God, I want to sample the beginning of this track so fucking bad. It's stuck in a memory. This is a very sweet song to come after such a weird one. This first stage actually has a proper closer, and it has me hopeful for the rest of the stages that they're going to be as thought out in parts as this first part is. Honestly, so far, I'm feeling good about what I've heard. It's definitely a little off-putting, probably, and I think it alludes to some more of what's going to be coming on in the next few parts, but I did find this to be a genuinely enjoyable listen in this first part of the album. Lots of great samples that feel very dated in the kind of early 1900s almost, but they feel kind of timeless as they're represented here with the vinyl crackle and the distortion. Honestly, if I could, I probably will go add some of these songs to my own Spotify library, because they are really that good. Honestly, it's like staring into a void while listening to oldies being played in the other room. So far, I'll give stage 1 an 8 out of 10, and that'll be the rating for the album so far. I'll start updating as I go through these, so we'll see how the score and the album develops. Okay, we're definitely layering on the noise here. The washed out drums and synths really give this song a very discordant feel. To be honest, if the noisy rhythms were given a bit more weight, I could hear J. Big Mafia on this. This song almost sounds like a West Side Gun. I can hear the conductor as we speak.
We have a problem! Conductor, we have a problem! Conductor!
very mysterious and with a very slow and steady rhythm. It's very noir. Fuck, god damn, this fucks with my memory. It's so similar to the first part, but little changes at the end of each motif fuck with what I remembered about the album. This is another version of the intro song, but it's like a few notes off or something. Okay, these tracks are starting to get a bit darker, especially the end of this track. Oh, this song sounds like a memorial service with a noisy, compressed, and distorted dance beat under it. This is weird. Something has gone terribly wrong. We've gone to field recording noises. The calming samples do show up, but they're more muffled with each track. It's also the spaciest song yet. It feels very much like being at a planetarium almost. This is a song that feels like it is crying out for lyrics. It sounds like heartbreak to me, watching the end of something beautiful slowly losing life, withering away into the void. This is probably the clearest moment since the fucking first stage, and with a fitting title as well. Noise is once again present. Ironically, the song reminds me of one of my favorite feel-good movies of all time, Amélie, a French film that is really good and you should watch. Highly recommend for a date night if y'all are willing to watch some weird stuff at the start. The movie plays a lot of old clips, often mixing the main character into those clips, and that's kind of what this song sounds like to me. The title is right. Things are unraveling. It's beautiful, but it is unnerving. I'm starting to get a little scared of what's gonna be coming next.
Alright, so finished stage 2. Musically, I think stage 2 is actually a great sonic expansion of the sounds and motifs from the first part, and it adds enough for it to be distinct from the first part as well. The sound design in particular really stands out on this part. It does the project thus far a service in spades. Really hammers home the whole void aspect. So far, I will give stage 2 an 8.5 out of 10, and I'll give the project so far an 8.5 out of 10.
It's a really strong opening, leaning directly into the uncanny with the void, encompassing just about every sound on the album. The horns do kind of sound squishy? I'm not sure how to describe it. It kind of reminds me of the dogs in Undertale. It's a very weird effect. And the motif is back, and not gonna lie, it's kind of scarier than ever. Everything's starting to get so lost in the sound design sauce. Jesus Christ, did I fucking write? But now it's starting to become uncomfortably disjointed. This is an odd little interlude with heartbeat thumps in the background and occasionally sample chop stuff in there. This is definitely a mood piece here. Those weird-ass squishy horns are back, and now drenched in so much reverb that they're a phonograph in a cave. It almost sounds like what you would hear if you were in a Fallout game, exploring through caves and vaults with the radio coming in bits and pieces through layers of the earth above you. It's an entrapping feeling, and I actually like that as a hook here. I'll be honest, this song kind of came and went. This song's more unsettling than anything. The album definitely has me feeling on edge by now, and the sleep deprivation is really making me feel the music a lot more. Honestly, the baby cradle noises are kinda sad here. It's honestly the first moment I felt directly sad from this project. This song is closer to the first side, and it definitely sounds like a lovely sunset through a dark film of void. Things are starting to get a tad more modern, seeming like a mix of samples and interpolated strings with some electronic pad backing, so that's interesting. Okay, these short interludes are throwing me the hell off. I love the swing in this one, and the reverb here feels particularly spacious with crackling tapping like raindrops. I really love the rhythm at the end of this song. We're on a beach now, and we're almost entirely into ambient music here, messing more with audio texture and sampled loops. Melodies kind of appear by the halfway point, but they're a little too choppy to make out. Another interlude. Some of the samples are back, but this is leaning heavily on the pads. This is something I definitely love to make a song out of. It does feel a bit more of a complete song than a lot of the tracks at this point forward. Now we're just in electronic ambient music, which I didn't quite expect at the start. It feels like entering a new galaxy with memories of the old slowly fading out in the background. This is a pretty fitting ambient closure. Some samples are strained through the
void,
but it's mostly electronic bliss. Alright, I will say, finished stage 3. I'm really starting to feel the weight of the album emotionally. Every song being longer than their earlier renditions, and occasionally interspersed with short interludes that cut from out of nowhere, is an interesting setup for what feels like a very big turning point in the project. This doesn't quite stand on its own in the way that the last 2 stages have, but being halfway through, I don't think it needs to for it to still be a notable and solid part of the album. The void grows exponentially. Currently, I'd give stage 3 a 7 out of 10, and currently the project is sitting at an 8.75 out of 10. Okay, this track is 22 minutes now, and we are in the deep end. This is heavily electronic and experimental. This is also where the weight of the subject matter of this album first fully hits. The fear in what are pieces you know that you've heard before, but any semblance of the familiar is now completely engulfed in void. At this point, I've lost complete track of where songs begin and end. At this point, this can feel like sonic torture with how violent and clicky the audio is. I commend anyone who can make it through. This point really turns the album into a battle of attrition, and the music really pushes you more and more into itself and the void. This is apparently a temporary bliss state, but dear God, does it not feel like that. Okay, finished stage 4. Yeah, I'm getting how people talk about how difficult this album is to listen to. I'm really getting it now. This was an all-encompassing experience into the darkest recesses of the brain. And honestly, this part really shows how it's not really something to me enjoyed. Honestly, my experience is more akin to just kind of sitting within fear, almost. Really not to be listened to on its own, unless you're really into analog ambient horror and the void. Give stage 4 a 6.5, and the project is sitting at a 9 out of 10 right now. Okay, so I need to come clean about something. I have not been entirely honest outside of the fact these are all dramatizations of what my experience of listening to this album was like. I did take a break while listening to this album. I took an hour to play Overwatch with some friends because this album is 6 hours long. By this point of the album, I hadn't slept in 36 plus hours, and I'm starting to go insane, almost literally listening to it. I am still saying I listened to this in one sitting, though, because I did not get up from this seat from when I started listening to when I finished. Just happened to be like a hour-long break to keep myself awake. So, yeah, fuck you. I did it in one sitting. Eat shit. Also, I needed some kind of joke here, because these next 2 parts are going to get kind of heavy. Another round of 20-minute song. Oh, wait, shit. Stage 5. Another round of 20-minute songs, and fuck any semblance of familiarity. This is almost pure noise. It does feel like it has a bit of a drawn-out structure, being 20 minutes long, but it is all for naught to be cut off by the void. Now that I'm deeper along in the noise tracks, I am starting to be able to notice when a song has changed. It doesn't help distinguish songs, though, as it just feels like a sonic continuation of the disorienting previous track. There's nothing on this track. There is nothing. There is space, there are sounds, or rather what feels like elongated sound waves. I think if I listen closely, I can hear waves. If I listen past the pops and the endless fields of electronic pads, if it's even that itself. Every time I think we've reached the center, the void becomes more and more of a black hole.
Void.
I'll be honest, I don't know how much darker this could get. The void, and there won't be any survivors. Stage 5 is a 6 out of 10, and the project so far is an 8.5, and the project so far is an 8.75 out of 10. Last 45 minutes, and it is minimalist. There's barely anything beyond what remains of the void. It feels like the finality of a black hole. Finally out of energy to absorb from others, it folds in on itself. There's nothing. There's nothing I could possibly say that can convey the weight that sound itself has on you as a person by this point in the project. Every moment is a struggle. But there's nothing stopping you except determination. But there's nothing stopping you except your own determination. The world around you is just gray static. Electronic dust that's as dense as the fog of memory that was a melody. You can no longer think of tones, let alone notes, and further still, the fading thought of a melody has all been replaced with void. You can hear snippets of something kind of familiar from when you started, but it's quickly cut off as soon as you recognize it. I think there's something to be said about this project being one of pain to endure, because that's what the void is. Pain. An unknown pain we can see from the outside but not truly understand until we face it ourselves. I started off this listening pretty cocky, thinking I could just power through this and come out protected and unaffected, but it consumes all. All the sounds I hear, the final pieces of tonality start to glisten away. I get why others have said this album is a difficult experience to get through. Because when it comes to the void, none really see the true end, or remember how to tell it before they're gone. This is the sound of the void winning, as it always does. Stage 6 is a 5.5 out of. You may have noticed I didn't mention the main intention of the album. As many allude to when talking about the project, this album is supposed to represent an auditory journey into the final stretch of time fighting against dementia. The void I haven't shut the fuck up about over these last few parts. I think that this specter of the happiest moments of your lives, the thing that takes everything you know and love before you actually die, is represented in the noise throughout the project, but also the effects, the space, the design, its structure. When it comes to these things, this project gives an almost morbid view into the final moments of life, fading away more and more until there is nothing left. It's powerful, it's scary, but unlike its real-life counterpart, this artist's representation can stay with us to remind us that our memories are sacred, and those we love are as loved as we remember them, even if they don't always remember back. My final rating for this project is a 9.5 out of 10. Never do what I did. Don't sit through this all in one sitting. Give each stage a day to sit with you and your thoughts, even if it's in the back burner throughout your day, and see how it colors your next step, if you're able to handle it, that is. This is a lot for an album, and I can definitely understand if someone doesn't want to sit through this 6.5 hour behemoth. But I did, and this was my experience with that. A little personal note here about the album. While I have enjoyed talking about this album and I am satisfied with what I listened to for the last 6.5 hours, there is a personal reason I chose to talk about this project and set aside this much time for it. And that is my grandmother, who has raised me since I was born, and her ongoing declining battle with dementia. For me, the void was not only representative of the disease itself, but the weight of the memories of the best mother I ever had, and knowing eventually they'll all sound like stage 6. Assuming it will even last that long, because dementia does look different for everyone. In honor of her, while she is still here, I will be linking a charity in my bio to help dementia research. Personally, I'm very broke, but I hope to have some money left aside to donate myself, and I encourage anyone watching to go and do the same. Go listen to some good music today, y'all, and I'll see y'all for the next review. Pieces.